Okay, we are live.
We're live. Yeah, okay. Nico? Oh wait, is your
I don't know what's happening with that. I'm
okay.
sorry. But yeah.
Oh damn.
And then Diego, your executive session purpose.
Yeah. Executive session for discussion on CRC and SIOC, please.
All right. I believe that's it for the agenda. So Diego, do you want a motion again to approve it?
Okay, thank you. Can we get a motion to approve today's agenda for July 8th, 2025?
I motion to approve the agenda for USAC's meeting on July 8th, 2025.
Wait, do we not have to motion for an executive session to add it to the agenda?
Oh, we do. Okay.
Yeah,
I
just
motion to add the executive session to the agenda.
I second.
thank you. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. With a vote to 10 to 0 to 0, that is approved. Now do we have to approve the agenda again?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve today's agenda on July 8th, 2025?
I motion to approve today's agenda for July 8th, 2025.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining. With a vote to 10 to 0 to 0, that is approved for today's agenda for July 8th. I hope everyone got to see the meeting minutes that that were sent out to your emails. If there is any opposition, if not, that is approved. We will now be moving on to public comments. Um, just a reminder that that public comment is only open to members of the undergraduate student association. Please challenge ideas, not individuals. Use gender inclusive and respectful language. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom from accountability. Each speaker will be given 2 minutes and the opportunity to speak once. Please do not use any dehumanizing language. With that, we are going to start public comment. Tommy, can you please screen share the timer for 2 minutes?
Yeah, 1 second.
Thank you. Is there anyone here for public comments? Please raise your hand.
Hello. Is there a way that I could change the name on here?
Oh, sorry. I don't think I've called on folks yet. Sorry. Let me give me a sec, sorry. Okay. Oh my God, sorry. You were first in my raising hands. I think this is Avery, right?
Yep, that's me.
Okay. Um, you may start your public comment.
All right. Good evening, council members. My name is Avery, and I'm here to give public comment in support of the resolution condemning the campus-wide and global rise of anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism. As the Palestinian genocide has raged on for almost 2 years, UCLA and the world at large have seen rising, insurmountable levels of Islamophobia. That being said, such instances of Islamophobia, physical, verbal, and emotional, have not been heeded seriously nor swiftly acted upon by UCLA administration, a direct contradiction of the diverse, safe campus they vehemently claim to uphold. To directly dismiss the safety concerns of a marginalized group of students whose existence has already been criticized and under attack for decades is abhorrent and must not be tolerated as such. As this resolution acts to swiftly and tangibly uphold the safety and wellness of Palestinian, Muslim, and Arab students on campus, I urge Council to vote yes on this resolution and do their part in protecting our peers. All of you ran on platforms promising to uphold diversity and equity with the resources and connections your respective offices give you, so act on it.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Sarah T. Please start whenever you're ready.
Good evening, council members. As a Palestinian Muslim student, the resolution on the docket today about condemning the campus-wide and global threat of anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism has hit very close to home. I'm here to express my strong support for it because it doesn't just describe some kind of policy, it speaks to the reality of the many lives that we face every day. The current climate on campus has had our community feeling incredibly targeted and silenced. Whether it's the doxing, the aggravators, and other instances of unsafety, all of these experiences have been met with silence from UCLA administration. If anything, we've often felt the opposite of being supported by admin, and this resolution calls for it all to end. Passing this resolution is a step towards uplifting voices from communities that urgently need care and protection. As our student government, you have the power to put pressure on the administration to take a stand for its students. And this resolution is exactly that. A stand supporting the Palestinian, Muslim, and Arab population on campus. It calls on the administration to take responsibility and accountability for their actions, as well as a long-term solution protecting and catering towards our need. That being said, I want to emphasize that this resolution aims to uplift and Palestinian Muslim voices that are not only being suppressed here at the university level, but also being silenced and targeted on a national scale. So I urge you guys to pass this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your public comment. We will now be moving on to our next commenter. Oh yes, Tamim. You can now start whenever you're ready.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Awesome, thank you. Good evening, Council. My name is Syed Tamim Ahmed. I'm a rising senior at UCLA, a brown, bearded, visibly Muslim student who has endured the relentless weight of Islamophobia, anti-Arab, and xenophobia hatred on this campus and beyond. The first time I entered this country, I was randomly selected by the TSA. I was pulled aside, interrogated, patted down. I thought maybe it's just a protocol, but that same random check happened every single time I traveled. Every airport, every flight. I was taught early on my body, my name, my identity are inherently suspicious. That is not just a coincidence, that is institutionalized racism dressed up as a security. At UCLA, it continued. I have been called a terrorist in public, at rallies, at bus stops, on the streets, just for existing, just for looking the way I do. And I'm not alone. Our sisters in hijab are harassed. Our peers in keffiyehs are profiled. Students are doxxed, threatened, assaulted, all while this administration looked the other way. Let's be clear, what's happening here is not accidental. It is systemic, it is violent, it is targeted, and it is unforgivable. Even in the national scale, after Zohran Mamdani, a proud Muslim, won his Democratic primary, the response was not democratic discourse. It was open, rabid hate, death threats, Islamophobic slurs, calls for deportation. That's how deep-rooted this hatred runs. It doesn't care who you are or what you have done. It only sees your faith and your face. This resolution is not politics, it is protection. It is a stand, finally, for students who are bleeding, crying, screaming to be seen. So I ask every one of you on council, are you going to stand up for your peers who are demonized for their identity? I urge the council to please vote yes on today's resolution, not just because it's right, but because it's long overdue. Show us that our pain matters. Show us that your words about equity and justice mean something when it counts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tamim. It's great to have you back here at council. Next, moving on to our next public commenter, Hamza, whenever you're ready, feel free to start.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, council members, for your time. During the past 2 years, we've seen a very steep rise in anti-Muslim, anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian sentiment so much so that Muslim students feel unsafe walking on campus. And I'd like to share an experience that I think is particularly emblematic. So the Muslim Student Association every year puts on College Day, which is an event where we bring students from all around SoCal, underserved communities to UCLA to do tours, a day full of activities to promote higher education with the example of the supposedly #1 campus, #1 university in the country. But in these past 2 years in particular, we've had to consider what's going to happen when we bring young hijabi students, young hijabi women to our campus, when we know that with even the students on our campus, they've been berated. Any visibly Muslim students have been threatened, have been called slurs. How can we ensure their safety, young students, when we bring them to our campus? Or even when our students are cleaning up after the event, it's time to go home, but it's dark out and they don't feel safe walking home. They have to buddy up. How ironic is it? How disgusting is it that in this good idea to have an event to promote higher education, to promote UCLA, we actually have to cover for the administration and their complete lack of regard for Muslim student safety. We have to cover for them and try to do our own means of ensuring safety. The administration has been entirely callous in their public language, never acknowledging their shortcomings or the struggles of Muslim students on campus. So I implore the members of USAC to support amendments that ensure the safety, that take the appropriate steps to support Muslims, Arabs, and Palestinians on campus. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for your public comments. Is there anyone else that would like to give public comments tonight? If so, please raise your hand. Pardon me if I if I mispronounce this. Is it Manor?
Yeah, pretty good. Mahnur.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you can start your public comment whenever you're ready.
Okay. Good evening, USAC members. My name is Mahnur, and I'm a Pakistani Muslim student proud to call UCLA home. Growing up, my parents taught me to value education, faith, and community above all else. Yet this past year, I found myself hesitant to wear my hijab or carry my prayer mat across campus, worried that in the aftermath of everything that's going on, my visible identity could make me a target. I remember scrolling through the UCLA Reddit feed on May 15, 2025, and seeing someone tear pages from the Quran in Dixit Court. I felt my chest tighten, not just for myself, but for every Muslim, Pakistani, Arab, Black, whose heart sank at the act of hate. When the administration said nothing, I wonder if our pain mattered. That is why this resolution is so urgent. We need a campus-wide statement condemning anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism, so that every one of us, whether wearing a keffiyeh, hijab, or simply our skin, can walk these quads without fear. We need the task force made permanent with real resources and mandatory training for students, faculty, and officers, so bias is named and undone where it happens. This isn't just policy, it's our promise that being Muslim or simply being yourself will never stand in the way of your safety or your peace of mind. I urge you to vote yes today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your public for your public comment. You can lower your hand. Thank you. Sorry if I mispronounce your name as well. Is it Najum? Sorry. And then yeah, can you share please your pronunciation of your name?
Yeah, sure. It's Najm.
Najum?
Yeah.
Thank you. You can start your public comment whenever you're ready.
So hello everyone, my name is Najm, and I'm a Pakistani Muslim student here at UCLA, and I would like to speak in favor of the resolution condemning anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab hatred. So first I'll talk about some personal anecdotes. So I have some relatives who go to UCLA here, and female relatives specifically, and they've experienced some particularly heinous instances of discrimination. So this one relative I know, for example, was running a hijab booth, just trying to show other students how it feels to wear hijab. And a lady walked by on Bruin Walk and made very Islamophobic remarks, calling the hijab ugly and anybody who wears it ugly. Similarly, this relative's friends have also experienced racism out in Westwood, being jeered at by people in cars and whatnot. UCLA is the #1 public university in the world. There is no place here for anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or anti-Arab or anti-Palestinian racism. And a very interesting criticism I heard of this resolution is that it's not accommodating of all groups. But we have to remember that change is incremental. We can't delay progress by saying not everybody is included because each of these resolutions need to be scoped to a particular set of people so that we can best accommodate them, like we did with anti-Semitism back in May of 2021 when the UCLA Chancellor's Office made a statement against anti-Semitism. If we can do it for anti-Semitism, we can also do it for anti-Arab, anti-Palestinian, and Islamophobic racism. And so I urge you all to vote yes on this resolution. Thank you for your time.
Just a reminder, I'm not sure if I got a confirmation from you, but just a reminder for everyone that public comment is only available and open to members of UCLA's Undergraduate Student Association. With that said, are there any other folks here for public comments? Yes. Can you please pronounce your name so council can I think your name starts with H.
Yeah, my name is Hanan. So hello everyone, my name is Hanan Ahmed and I'm a Black Arab student who wears the hijab every single day, proudly for the last 6 years. But ever since coming to UCLA, especially during this time, I've encountered many racist remarks, not only to like my race, but also to my religion. For instance, around times of the encampment and things like around that time, someone stopped me and said that my head was going to be cut off just for the way I looked. Mind you, I was only wearing my hijab. And in that moment, I froze, not because I doubted my faith, but because I was wondering if anyone there would stand up for me and if this was normalized around this campus. It haunted me around campus and stuck in my head. I never knew if this hate was going to increase from just that. And the silence from the people around our campus, and people in charge made me feel like this hate was going to grow even louder. This like raises the importance that we can't leave students feeling unsafe and while they're just living their truth. I'm asking USAC today to demand for a campus-wide proclamation that calls out like anti-Arab hate, anti-Muslim hate, and racism by name. We need to focus on how this is affecting people day by day, and how it's becoming a permanent thing around our campus. And we need to empower, fund, and report it directly to the chancellor and want our voices to be heard and changes to be implemented. So I'm tired, and I speak for many people when I say that it's draining every day and it's affecting not only our mental health, but our effects and our studies and our well-being. And I raise awareness for you guys all to vote yes on this resolution and empower our diversity on campus. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your public comment. Are there any other members that would like to raise their hand and give public comment? Just a final call for more public comments. If not, seeing that there's no more public comments, I will end public comment at 10:32 p.m. today. Thank you so much, everyone. Seeing as that there is no funding allocations tonight, we can move on to our special presentations from the e-board funding, our special presentation for e-board funding. Tommy, who's leading this presentation?
If whoever here that's giving it, can you please raise your hand and then I can promote you to share? Amazing.
I believe it's Simran and Michelle who are currently raising their hands.
Yeah, I promoted them.
Okay. Whenever you guys get your access to screen share, feel free to start your presentation.
Hi, I'm just trying to get the presentation pulled up so I can share the screen. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, everyone. So, hi, my name is Michelle. I was part of the e-board for 2024-2025, and we are doing this special presentation to advocate for an increased budget this coming year for the election board. We hope to encourage everyone to consider raising the election board budget when you decide on budgets tonight. We believe that we should be allocated a few extra $1,000, and we're going to explain why in this presentation. So last year, USAC made significant cuts to the e-board budget. All the election board member stipends were cut in half. The chair stipend remained the same. And then but that's not what we're here to discuss today. That's fine, but the council also decided to cut down advertising to $2,000, which was a really drastic shift from last year. I mean, the year before that. It was like $10,000 before, so that's kind of a really drastic cut. So you can see over here, this is like the breakdown of budget. The resulting budget has Daily Bruin advertising at only $2,000, and Daily Bruin advertising is kind of like a misnomer. This encompasses like all of the advertising budget that we have, not just for the Daily Bruin. eBoard does advertise in the Daily Bruin, but it's not the only thing we do. My fellow presenter Simra is going to break down like what other stuff we did, what other things we spent money on for advertising this year, and we're going to need more than $2,000.
Hello, everyone. My name is Simra Mirza, and I served as Director of External Relations this past year. Some of you may remember me from the candidate debates. I was the moderator, and you might remember me from some emails regarding Meet the Candidates. And this means that I know firsthand how much money we truly require for our publicity and what this translates to for USAC elections. So here we have the breakdown of the budget further. And so assistance here, which was about $16,000, was used for campaign reimbursements and award stipends. And then the next four line items on the breakdown in the previous slide, supplies, graphics, Daily Bruin advertising, and facilities combined, which totaled about $9,000, was used as our publicity budget. And then this funded, among other things, our $5,000 collaboration with Bruin Media Group. Of course, you guys all recently ran. If you guys chose to make a video with them, then you know who they are. And they helped us with that budget of $5,000 do a bunch of publicity for the elections, including our giveaway prizes, which we gave away an iPad, headphones, and gift cards. And then we were able to print out flyer stickers, which actually ended up being very popular. And then we also paid for Instagram ads, which were also very effective and got a lot of clicks. And then we had the surplus, which of course is separate and was requested and used to fulfill last year's reimbursements and stipends, as there was also an issue with that. However, this is why we're coming to you to ask for more money. You might notice that even though our advertising was cut down to $2,000, we were able able to use $9,000 this year for our publicity budget, but that's because we mistakenly used the $6,000 of the facilities line item for our publicity, and that was due to a lapse in communication. The $6,000 is actually intended to be used to run the My UCLA ballot, but we weren't informed of that fact, and so we believe that it could have been, we believed at that time that it could be used for publicity, but of course it can't going in the future. So now that we have this information, that $6,000 has to be saved for the My UCLA ballot, and we don't have the money to continue on next year. So next slide, please, Michelle. So with that, we would be left with only $3,000 combining the supplies, the graphics, and the Daily Bruin advertising line items. And if we were to have just $3,000 for publicity next year, we would have basically no Bruin Media Group collab, which means no flyers. They printed out 2,000 flyers for us, and there would be no bulletin board ads, the kind of public bulletin boards that we have around campus, no sandwich boards, which are on multiple places on campus, UCLA What's Bruin posts, which reach 20,000 people. Essentially, we'd have to significantly reduce our giveaway prizes and just really make significant adjustments to publicity from this year. And that would be extremely, extremely difficult to work with. Now, all that being said, this year we were able to increase turnout from the previous year by 68%. That is over half. And that's a very good amount. And next year, we're hoping to do even better. We've discussed with Bruin Media Group potentially beginning to advertise in fall and winter to get more people to run and to participate, giving informational sessions about how to run and promoting those as well. And so we really do want to do a good job. And we know that you guys just ran, and you of all people should remember how important it was that the election board does their job properly and gets you guys your votes. And so we really want to continue that on and honor that for the candidates going next year. By getting even more people to run, more people to vote, that means more people participating in your offices, more people participating in our programs. And it really starts with elections, and we can't do anything with $3,000. The line item might have been that line item is misleading. And it seems like we use all of that money just to advertise in the Daily Bruin, but that is not at all the case. It was for all of our publicity. And as we mentioned, the giveaway prizes and stuff like that. In the past, Bruin Media Group has received $7,000 to $10,000 from the e-board, and that's just the Bruin Media Group collaboration. Never mind what e-board does independently for publicity. And essentially, we're not even asking for that. We're just asking that our budget is at least restored to its previous level, which would mean that the Daily Bruin advertising line item should be at least $8,000, so that we can have a $9,000 total, general publicity budget. And just as a side note for you all, perhaps something that can be done to rectify this for the future is just to change the name of the line item so that it's more clear and future people on the election board don't have to deal with this and don't face this problem. And I'm really speaking on behalf of our team here when I say we worked really hard in elections last year, and we increased turnout significantly, again by 68%. And all we want to do is do that next year and do an even bigger and better job. And participation in USAC starts with participation in the elections. And having recently been elected, you all know firsthand how important this is. And so we really do encourage you to grant us our requests so that we can do the best job we can. And at this point, we welcome any questions from you all.
Yeah, just so we have a clear number before going in, is there a certain number you guys are looking for in terms of your guys' overall marketing budget for the coming year?
Yes, we're requesting that the Daily Bruin advertising line item increases to at least $8,000.
Okay, and that's the only line item that you guys would like to see raised?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Sorry, does this include giveaways? I know this year it was the iPad giveaway and other gift cards. Is that going to be taken into consideration in the request?
Yeah, that's right. We were able to have such a good giveaway this year because of our mistaken advertising budget, but next year, if we only have $2,000, then we wouldn't be able to have anything really for the giveaways. And the giveaways are a really big incentive for people to vote, so the voter turnout will be significantly reduced.
So I'm looking at your guys' the spreadsheet for the budget, and the line items are listed as follows. You have e-board supplies, e-board graphics, and e-board advertising. Um, there's not a line item just for Daily Brew and advertising. So just to be clear, is there just advertising you want, or do you guys want for supplies like the giveaway and other graphics?
Michelle, can you share slide 3 again?
Yeah, sure. Where is it? Right here.
Jessica, just to confirm, would Daily Brew and advertising just be the same thing as e-board advertising then on the spreadsheet?
Yes,
Yeah, I'm pretty.
oh, sorry.
No, go on,
It's
go on.
it's most likely just what the description is in our accounting software system. So if we need to adjust the descriptions on what's appearing on the budget report, we could do that. But yes, as of now, the budget doc that we prepared just has advertising listed. It doesn't explicitly state daily room advertising. So it's just a GL, essentially like the GL description.
All right, then I guess that's the one we'll um vote on or consider upping to the 8,000 requested, and then yeah.
Yes, Talia.
Um, just to like clarify, so before like that 6,000 that was like that you guys had to use for the ballots, like on this spreadsheet, it's listed as like a separate cost, but like how before it was just 8,000, but listed as what? Like what was it listed under?
Just to clear up any miscommunication, what we're requesting the $8,000 to be is what's on the slide right now as Daily Brew and advertising. The facilities line item is, so this year essentially we were able to have that turnout and whatnot because we use the $6,000 from the facilities line item, and that's not supposed to be used for publicity, but that wasn't communicated to us. And so that $6,000 for the next year is going to be basically off limits now that we do know that, because that's only supposed to be used for the My UCLA ballot, and we didn't know that at the time, and we used it for publicity. So it's sort of separate from everything, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense how it's like listed. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for presenters today from council? Michelle and Simmer, are there any final remarks you'd like to make?
Uh, well, not any, but we just really urge you to grant our request because again, you guys were just elected. You know just how important it is to get that voter turnout. Of course, like we had that 68% increase this year, so we do really want to continue on that upward trend in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for your and thank you for taking the time to present to us all tonight. Tommy, you can remove the screen share. We will now be moving on to our appointments. First, we begin with our Student Fee Advisory Committee applicants. Suzanne, wait, no, actually, Tommy, can you pull up the timer, please, for appointee?
Yeah, 1 second.
Thank you.
Let me promote them both first. All right.
And then in the meantime, I can just share with the applicants that are sharing tonight. The way this will work is that you have a 1 minute introduction, and then council members, you get a 15-minute question and answer period. And then after that, the appointee applicants will have a 1 minute closing statement. And then Tommy will share ARC recommendations. We will have deliberations and then we will vote. Is it good, Tommy? Okay.
Yeah, we're good to go. Can you guys see the timer?
Yes. Thank you. We can start with our first appointments for the Student Fee Advisory Committee. Suzanne, whenever you're ready, please start your 1 minute opening remark.
Hi, everyone. I want to say thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all tonight. My name is Mehreen Suzanne, but most of my life know me as Suzanne. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a rising fourth year computational and systems biology major and science education minor, and a proud Bangladeshi American first generation student. I'm applying for the SFAC committee or the Student Fee Advisory Committee because I care deeply about making sure our student fees are allocated with transparency, equity, and intention, especially towards services that many students, including myself, rely on to survive and thrive at UCLA. Through roles I've been grateful to step into, such as Chief of Staff of the Internal Vice President's Office, Director of the Committee Integration Program in the IVP and TSR offices, Project Director of the Beautiful Mind Project, and the Academic Advancement Program Student Staff Committee, I've led initiatives around student worker advocacy, overseen multi-committee operations, provided mental health support for underserved communities, and worked to induct students into student government here at UCLA, uplifting voices and building space for students within USAC. In the CalTeach minor and Mentors for Academic and Peer Support, working in K through 12 classrooms, I've seen firsthand how funding gaps in K through 12 classrooms translate into long-term disparities, and this reinforces my belief that education can't be equitable unless funding is too, even in higher education, and especially in higher education. My background in student government and academic support programs has shown me how funding shapes access. These mindsets, backgrounds, and skills are what I hope to bring to SFAC, a commitment to equity, accountability, and ensuring that every student sees their needs reflected in how our shared fees are spent. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your opening 1 minute introduction. We will now move on to our 15-minute question and answer period. Tommy, can you please set the timer for 15 minutes? Thank you. Does council have any questions for applicant today? Yes, Nico.
Hello. I was just wondering what kind of initiatives or projects you were hoping to fund with SFAC's pretty large funding body.
Hi, Nico. To answer that question, I will say that I think a lot of my decisions will be shaped and founded through speaking with the student body more. The need that I've seen over this past year, especially working in the academic advancement program, is that a lot of first generation undocumented students are feeling unsafe with current campus climates. So I think I would work towards prioritizing and uplifting programs that protect undocumented students, programs that protect first generation students and uplift their educational experience at UCLA. But going forward, more specific programs, I would also want to uplift mental health programs like the CAP Center. I think having that mental health support and having that as a stronghold at UCLA, especially with everything going on, especially with many students feeling unsafe, uncertain about the future, having that extra support for them and making sure that um, it has a stronghold at UCLA and its legacy is seen and students have access to those resources. That'll be a lot of where my priorities will be going into it, but I definitely want to talk more with the student body and make SFAC more accessible through allowing a chance for students to give their input firsthand. Um, Even doing coffee chats and things like that, bringing students in and seeing what their current needs are. Because UCLA is such a diverse population, I want to make sure that we are speaking, when we're making these decisions within SFAC, we're speaking for the student body, we're uplifting their voices, and we're making decisions based on what the current needs are. So I would definitely want to increase that transparency, get that feedback, and make decisions based on what we're hearing as well.
Thank you. Do any other council members have any questions? Yes, Sherry.
Hi, particularly given the UC and our nation's current policy landscape, funding, as I'm sure you know, has continued to be such an incredibly large issue, as many student programs have faced a lot of cuts. And I know you work very closely with the administration and different campus stakeholders on SFAC. So I want to ask you, do you have any experience navigating administrative bureaucracy, and what balance will you strike between taking adversarial and collaborative stances when you advocate for students?
Um, Coming into UCLA, I've been lucky to find a place within the academic advancement program. I mentioned that I was part of the student staff advisory committee, and within those spaces, I was able to talk firsthand with admin who are greatly involved within the AAP's functionality. And that really helped me step out of my shell. It can be very intimidating being an undergraduate student, speaking to administration or anyone with that much authority and putting your thoughts across, but it's been very important to me to get over what initial fears I had and to go for it, because I think in spaces like these, within SFAC, within AAP, any of the positions I've held, it's been for the students, for my peers, for making UCLA a more safe space. So I've definitely pushed past that, and I'm more than confident that in this role, I'll be able to talk to admin with full confidence, without reservation, without fear, even if there's adversarial viewpoints. And the reason is, I think if there is something that I don't agree with that admin is very much pushing for, I will do my research and talk from the student perspective. How is this not benefiting the students? And why is this something that we should be collectively pushing against? And use that research and use what I've compiled to back up my stance, my position, instead of wavering or holding back any reservations I might have.
Thank you so much. Chris, you have your hand up. If you're talking, I don't think we can hear you. Oh,
How do you define impact when evaluating a proposed use of
sorry, Chris.
student fees?
Can,
Would you
Chris, can you please say your question again? I think you cut off.
as I said, browser? Okay. Can you hear me now? Great. Thanks, Eva. Okay, my first question is, how do you define impact when evaluating the student fees? What data or indicators would you prioritize and why?
I think this is a really good question for myself and anyone interested or involved in SFAC currently to consider, because it's important to be fair with decisions and promote equity versus how can we equally distribute, because equity, I think, should be at the core of it all. um, Making sure that the student communities in need of resources currently are getting those resources in order to make their educational experience not only as fair as possible, but also as welcoming and um, foundationally um, how do I word this? Like making sure that they're comfortable in their education enough to thrive where they are and flourish within that space. So the way personally I would try to make these decisions is to um, have firsthand conversation. I'm very big, no matter where I'm being involved and what conversations I'm having, is to have conversations with the communities that the conversation is about instead of trying to speak on their behalf. So if there are things on the board that everyone is kind of unsure about, or I know it's going to come up because we've gotten the agenda beforehand and I'm kind of unsure myself, I would go out, speak to communities that are directly being involved, and try to make decisions that are as equitable as possible. Um, just working in educational spaces and speaking from the educational lens as a science education minor and working with CalTeach internships, um, it's very important to me that students are seen, especially in spaces that may be dominated by admin. So I would just make sure that every note that I bring up in discussion and every um, decision that I'm personally making and voting for, I feel fully confident in. And the way I'll feel fully confident in these decisions is by speaking to the groups before basing my decision. And more specifically, seeing how funding certain programs will uplift the student experience. Um, for the different communities that exist at UCLA, just keeping in mind that UCLA is not one homogenous group. There are many different communities, and different communities have different needs in order to thrive here, including safety, including, expression or education. So
Thank you so much, Suzanne. Are there any other council members that would like to ask a question? Chris, yes, do you have another question?
Yes. Follow up, since you mentioned needs. So as you mentioned, student needs are often and they are also budget cycles move quite slowly. How would you ensure that emergent student issues are not zero delays in fee allocations, as we see this being a constant?
I'm really sorry I wasn't able to hear a lot of that. Would you mind repeating?
Of course, of course. As you mentioned, student they're also dire, but budget cycles move slowly. So how would you ensure student issues are not neglected due to procedural delays in fee allocations?
To be completely honest, I heard the second half of that conversation, and I can try to just tackle it from there, unless you'd like to. I'm sorry to ask you to repeat
Sorry,
again.
Suzanne. I don't want to interrupt you. Chris,
Yes, of
if it's
course.
possible, you can leave your question
Um,
in the chat. It's a bit difficult for us to understand. But please drop it in the chat and then Suzanne will try her best
yeah,
to respond. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
yes, let me drop in some.
Okay, so this is a good question. Student needs are often urgent, but budget cycles move slowly. How would you ensure emergent student issues are not neglected due to procedural delays in fee allocations? So, I think a big thing to keep in mind with whether it's USAC appointments to different committees, from what I've seen is that even through the committee integration program, what I've seen is that a lot of student and student groups just aren't aware of the resources that are available. And it may be that they're applying at the last minute because they're not aware that it may take a while and that um, like it would they would get what they need at the time that they need if maybe they had applied a lot earlier or like send in those applications earlier. And I think that goes back to transparency. I would try to make it well, the first thing I would try to do is to try to make sure this information is out there, that this is a community that exists and that um here are the applications you can submit in order to get the resources that are currently needed very, very early on in the school year, so that clubs and organizations and students are sending in their requests and their applications pretty early on in order to streamline it a little bit more. And then in terms of just budget cycles moving slowly, I think making sure they're not neglected is really important because we want to make sure that students feel heard and seen with all of the roles that we're taking on here at USAC and within different appointments. So I would just try to make sure that there was a communication method after you submitted your application. If there's any concerns, what is the status, and things along those lines to make sure that students don't feel like they're in the dark after they've submitted their requests. So I would just try to improve communication, improve transparency, and also just improve open spaces where students can speak what's on their mind and any improvements or any feedback that they have for us in order to make sure that decisions aren't one-sided and that students feel listened to and heard with every decision being made.
Thank you so much. We'll probably just take one more question from council. If not, thank you so much, Suzanne, for answering questions from the council members. You can now begin your 1-minute closing statement whenever you're ready.
Thank you for all of the questions. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all. I know firsthand how student-funded services can make all of the difference for someone just trying to make it through university, especially as a first-generation student or with identities that don't feel as represented within the university that they go to. So if given the chance, I'll work to ensure those resources are protected and expanded for every student that needs it. And as a first generation student, I've seen how access can shape someone's entire college experience. So I want to make sure that funding decisions on this campus are driven by care, community, and justice. And I see SFAC as an opportunity to bridge budget decisions with equity, accessibility, and transparency. And I would love to take on this role with these things in mind if given the opportunity. Thank you all again.
Thank you so much. Can we get ARC allocations, ARC recommendations, Sami, please?
Yeah, I can do it. Suzanne presented with a written application and an ARC interview with goals that directly aligned with what our values should be as a unified council, one that prioritizes transparency and equal opportunity for our students. Although we wished her interview would have contained more tangible steps and actionable initiatives, we also recognize the wealth of her experiences, with prior experiences ranging from USAC to standing up for our underserved communities. ARC is excited to see what how Suzanne grows within this role, and we believe that she has what it takes to excel and serve as a voice for our undergraduate students on the Chancellor's Student Fee Advisory Committee. With a 3-0 vote, ARC recommends Suzanne for this appointment.
All right, so Diego's Mac has died. So now I guess after that, I guess we'll go on to council member deliberations. He'll be back shortly, just FYI, but yes. All right, well, if no one has anything to say, I guess we can move forward to a vote. Can someone please motion?
I motion to appoint Suzanne to the Chancellor's Student Fee Advisory Committee.
Second.
Yes, Lorelai.
Could you include the term length in that motion, please?
How long is the term length?
A year, I believe.
Okay, I motion to appoint Suzanne to the Chancellor's Student Fee Advisory Committee for a year.
Second.
Is that correct the correct language, Lorelai, just for confirmation?
I think it'd be best if you said if you included the academic term as well. Sorry, my apologies, but just saying that the name, the committee or position, and then the academic year and the term length. Thank you.
Okay, third time's the charm. Let's see if I got it this time. I motion to approve. I motion to appoint Suzanne to the Chancellor Student Fee Advisory Committee for the 2025 to 2026 academic year for a one-year term.
Second.
Thank you. Hiram motions, Joy seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Oh my gosh. What? Please lower your hands. Please raise your hands. All those against, please raise your hands. All those abstaining, please raise your hands. With a vote of 12 to 0, that is approved. Congratulations, Suzanne, on being appointed as the undergraduate member to SFAC.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. We can now move on to our next appointments for tonight. This is the Office of the President appointment to the Student Health Advisory Committee, Wyatt Lewis. Tommy, whenever you can set up the timer, and then Wyatt, whenever you're ready, you can start your 1 minute opening remark.
Alrighty. Good evening, everyone. My name is Wyatt Lewis. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a rising third year psychobiology major here at UCLA. I am applying for the Student Health Advisory Committee because I'm passionate about helping make student healthcare not only more accessible, but also more inclusive and responsive to the full spectrum of physical, mental, and emotional health needs that students face throughout their time in college. Too often, healthcare systems take a one-size-fits-all approach, overlooking the unique challenges faced by marginalized first-gen and underserved student populations. I believe SHAC plays a critical role in changing that by ensuring that the voices and lived experience of all students are reflected in campus health policies and services. I hope to advocate for systems that are not just available, but truly effective and empowering for everyone. At UCLA, I've been fortunate to serve in roles that center student empowerment and community as a research assistant in the David Geffen School of Medicine, and as a Bruin Connector for the Strategic Partnership Community Engagement Office, and as a Bridge Builders Foundation representative. I've done my best to hold up my values for multiple people from multiple different backgrounds. I am eager to grow within this role and learning from the committee and listening to the student body in my role. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We can now move on to our 15-minute question and answer period. If council members have a question for our appointment applicant, please raise your hands. Yes, Sherry.
Hi, Wyatt. Great to see you again. I would just love to hear more about any recent UC state or federal policies that you think impact UCLA student health and wellness, and would love to know how you will address these changes tangibly in a rapidly changing policy landscape.
I would say there's a couple things that have been happening, but two major things that I think will affect UCLA students, um, whether now or in the future when I'm gone. Recently, the Big Beautiful Bill was passed in the House and the Senate, which means Medicaid will be denied for most individuals in the country. Um, Majority of people at UCLA, or I think majority of people in the United States, are on Medicaid or some sort of public insurance plan, and I think that's a major effect towards them. I also think another thing is just the general budget cuts that have been happening across the UC system and college campuses wide. I think I've seen definitely in my departments from AAP to my research department to undergraduate admissions, budget cuts have been hefty and they have been very big. And with these budget cuts have come, people are leaving, people can't be hired, and voices are not being represented because those people cannot be hired and they're not able to talk. So I think those two major things are definitely things that will affect students, especially students who already don't have a voice or their voice is so limited, especially with their own health. They may think that with these budget cuts, that means like their health is not of the utmost importance, which it is and it should be. So I think those are two major things.
Thank you so much. Oh yeah, Sherry.
Oh, I just wanted to, oh, wait, do I have to raise my hand? Sorry.
No, you're good. You can
Oh,
continue.
okay. Just the second part of my question, how will you address these changes tangibly, as a part of SHAC? But those were great. I really liked hearing that.
I would say to the best of my abilities to represent those voices and to reach out to different student organizations and student groups to see what's going on and to how their members feel. And possibly even have an email bulletin of like a question and answers. And to just like host these concerns so that they don't think that they cannot be concerned about those things. I think one thing that a lot of students don't realize is there should be a lot of transparency when it comes to concerns and doubts with their own health. And with that being said, I think having a bulletin email or just like a little question and answer box that's just saying like, hey, if you have a concern about your health or you have a concern about what's going on in the world in regards to your health or in just regards to you as an individual, just let us know and then we can answer those questions with an email or let you know personally. Um, so yeah, I think that's how I would go about it.
Nico.
Hi, Wyatt. It's my understanding that you have previously held this role during the last academic school year. With this experience, what do you believe are the biggest areas of improvement for the Student Health Advisory Committee, and how do you plan to combat this?
Um, I've actually not held this, maybe it was I have not held this, I didn't hold this role last year. This is my first year doing it, but I can answer the rest of your question if you can repeat the rest of your question, please.
Yeah, so just to confirm, have you been in this position prior to today's interview?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's my understanding. Then I do not have a question.
Okay.
Yes, Tommy.
All right. I guess my question is, what are previous kind of goals or initiatives of SHAC that you hope to continue if appointed to this position? And then outside of the bulletin, what are goals or kind of aspirations that you have for the committee that are tangible steps that you hope to take in the coming year?
Um, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, so just kind of what is a project, goal, or initiative of SHAC that it has carried out over the last year or so that you would hope to continue into the next coming year? And then additionally, what is an aspiration or goal that is new of your own that you hope to bring to SHAC in the next 2 years if appointed?
Yeah, I know that SHAC does deal with UC-SHIP, the Student Health Insurance Plan, and they play an integral role in evaluating, making recommendations for that plan, and then helping maintaining like their balance between the costs and the benefits for students. I hope to be able to engage with that project in the role of just um, making sure that everything goes swimmingly and again bring transparency to what's going on because I do know at least in my personal life with people that I know UC-ship can be kind of confusing and a little bit daunting, especially when it comes to like either copays or like the after visits. So I hope to be a part of that in some type of way. So to maybe bring more transparency or just to help maintain the current plan. And besides like the bulletin idea, um, I was hoping to maybe, because I have previous experience in like planning like events for prospective students for UCLA, I was hoping maybe do a certain like mental health like event for current students um like um like a little booth where students come up and I know I kind of already said the Q&A box idea, which also went hand in hand with the booth idea. Um, just come up and like we can talk about available health resources, basically tell them like this is what we do at SHAC and this is why we're doing it and we're really here for the students. Um, and yeah, I just to bring more transparency, even though SHAC has been very transparent to this moment.
Thank you, Hiram.
Hi, thank you for joining us today, Wyatt. My question for you is, what experience do you have specifically with maintaining the health and wellness of our diverse communities, and how would you use SHAC's capabilities to further your advocacy?
I think one bit of experience that I have with health and wellness in regards to UCLA is being a research assistant. I'm currently a research assistant for a fentanyl systematic review here at UCLA. Even though it doesn't directly deal with humans, a lot of our research has to do with the health of humans and has to do with cataloging information as to why they overdosed or where it happened or who it's happening to. I've done this research about a year, and one thing that I've learned is that overdoses, especially fentanyl overdoses, synthetic opioid overdoses, happen to everyone. And a lot of people slip between the cracks, especially if they're from rural areas or they're from certain areas that just aren't reached by like conglomerate people. So I think not only knowing how to data extract that data and like catalog that data and just knowing how the healthcare system has been working, especially since our study goes back until 2013. So for the past like 10 years, understanding how that works, I think going into SHAC, I have that bit of understanding of how the healthcare system works outside of UCLA, but also I can learn more and ask questions and be curious about how UC SHIP works and how the ASH Center works and how CAPS works within UCLA and better that.
Thank you so much. Hannah?
Hi, Wyatt. Thank you so much for being here. You touched on this a little bit, but as you know, many students encounter challenges in understanding their UC-ship benefits and also accessing campus health services. So my question is, what specific and tangible steps would you take as a part of SHAC to help students better navigate these systems?
Um, from what I know about the capabilities of SHAC and from what I will learn if I'm chosen to be in SHAC, um, I would hope with that transparency, I could do with, especially if I'm working with someone, I can do like flyering on Burn Walk, just telling them like, hey, this is CAPS, hey, this is UC Ship, or hey, this is the Ash Center. I feel like a lot of times people just get confused on where they are. And they don't know where it is. So just telling them, hey, this is where the Ash Center is, hey, this is where CAPS is, and then explaining like, oh, this is the UC Ship. I think also just again with my bulletin email idea, just having that forward steps of like this is that and this is that and just like continually asking them what is the confusion or what do you think is your concern or just having that understanding of where they're coming from. um, I think that's the main thing as the student health advisory board, keeping students first and keeping them in our minds so that they know that we are understanding them and we just want to work with them.
Thank you, Nico.
Hi, Wyatt. Sorry about earlier. I misunderstood something, but um, my question is, what are some areas of improvement you see for this committee, and then how do you plan to address them throughout your term?
I would say I'm not sure if it's an area of improvement or just an area to uh, navigate better. I guess I'm going back to UC ship just because that is like the most prevalent thing I've heard with my peers. Um, just like a lack of understanding of what's going on or like a lack of how to like do this or how do I do that, especially since a lot of them have never had their own insurance plan ever in their lives, or if they did, like it was through their parents. So um, I think possibly one way I would do that is just to have like very simplified like guides or infographics or like peer led info sessions. I think that can make a really big difference, especially with freshmen, since they're not really knowing of what's going on with their insurance plan and they don't really think about it until they get sick or they are suddenly unwell. So I just hope to bring that level of of just knowledge and understanding when it comes to that. Um, yeah.
Yes, Hannah.
Hi. My second question is, so in the past, SHAC has worked closely with the Student Wellness Commission and also the ASH Center on various health initiatives. So my question is, if appointed, what specific goals or projects would you like to pursue through these collaborations?
If possible, I would want to lead an initiative on sleep. Um, I think especially at UCLA, sleep is a very laxing commodity. I think students kind of take sleep for granted. I definitely have. And what we don't understand is that sleep is the nexus of how we operate, and it's the nexus of how we become good humans and we do good work. Sleep is how you rest and you recharge, and your brain remembers for your midterm or your final. Um, and I think we substitute sleep for caffeine or for a short-term renewal offer instead of just sleeping. So I think one initiative, if it's at all possible, or like I wouldn't mind spearheading something on sleep, whether it's a peer-led sessions on it, or it's just like passing out like infographics, or like um, just having that level of conceptualizing that sleep is important and that all of us students should sleep. And maybe it's not for a long time, but just enough to where you feel recharged. So yeah, I think if possible, I would, I would, I would do an initiative on sleeping and sleeping well.
Thank you. Are there any other final questions from council members? If not, we can move on to the appointments, 1 minute closing remarks. Thank you, Wyatt. Whenever you're ready, you can begin your 1 minute closing. Tommy, if you could set the timer, please.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you all again for the opportunity to share why this work is important to me. My passion for health equity isn't just theoretical, it's rooted in hands-on experience through public health research, community service, and mentorship. And I've seen how thoughtful student-centered advocacy can make a real difference. What draws me most to SHAC is its unique role as a bridge between students and the institutions that shape their health experiences. I see this as a space where real change happens, where students' voices guide policy, access, and care, and I would bring a collaborative, action-oriented mindset to this work. Excuse me, sorry. Someone committed to listening carefully, learning continuously, and speaking up intentionally. Whether it's pushing for stronger mental health support, or ensuring UC-ship benefits reflect student realities, or expanding awareness around access and resources, I'm ready to commit the time and energy this role demands. Most of all, I want to help make sure no student feels overlooked. And when it comes to their health, I hope they're at the utmost importance. It would be an honor to serve on this committee, and I thank you again for listening to me tonight.
Thank you so much. Tommy or anyone else on ARC, could you please give ARC recommendations?
Yes, let me pull it up. Sorry. All right. So Wyatt Lewis brings a kind and values-driven presence with a clear passion for student well-being. However, his responses lack specificity. As he would be the only returning member to SHAC next year, this raises concerns about preparedness to support continuity. ARC is eager to learn more about his interest in returning and how he hopes to grow within the committee.
Thank you. Are there any council deliberations?
Oh, I forgot to say the vote. The vote was 1 to 2 to 0.
Thank you. Are there any council deliberations on this appointment?
Yeah, I can kind of just give light kind of to what we had discussed in ARC. I think we had just when we were looking at the appointment, this is the one appointment for for 4 students that are being made to Shack overall. So 3 are already going to be serving their second year this year, and then Wyatt would be this year and the next year, if appointed. That being said, one of our major concerns was just the vagueness of the answers, and not really a firm understanding of specific like functions of Shack. However, one of the major ones was also regarding policy, but he did show today that he has a larger understanding of the policy. And then, however, we still just, I don't know, I can speak for myself. I think just in terms of making sure this one appointment is someone that is really knowledgeable because they will be kind of the mentor of the 4 and kind of helping the other 3 students who will be new to the committee next year. So just making sure that we were intentional with this appointment. Um, but yeah, I don't know if Sherry, Jaya want to say anything. Um,
Wait, do I have to raise my hand? Sorry.
Yeah, but you're good for now.
Oh, okay, sorry.
You're good.
I think like kind of echoing a little bit what Tommy said. My biggest concern was just like knowledge about kind of the policy landscape of our system and of like our state and our country right now. And so I wanted to ask a couple more questions during the USAC meeting to Wyatt about his understanding of that and how it affects like UCLA healthcare access. But I will say that I feel a lot more. I feel like he demonstrated a very good understanding today of that. And so I really, really appreciated his answers there. Yeah, but echoing everything else that Tommy said.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Are there any other council members? If not, we can move on to a vote. Sorry, my screen is frozen. Lorelai, just for confirmation, do we have to motion? Yeah, we have to motion right now, right?
Yes, you could motion to approve or decline or just any motion to like then move forward with whatever to close out this item.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry, I just got lost there. Can we get a motion for this appointment, please? And it would roughly be the similar language as the previous appointment, include their name, what position we are appointing them to, and the academic year, and then someone second, and then council will vote, please. Sherry,
I motion to appoint Wyatt Lewis to the Student Health Advisory Committee for the 25 to 26 school year and the 26 to 27 academic year, for a 2-year term.
perfect. Thank you. Who seconded?
I did.
Oh, thank you, Jaya. Sherry motions and Jaya seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Thank you so much. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining. With a vote to 12 to 0 to no, sorry, with a vote to 11 to 0 to 1, that is approved. Congratulations, Wyatt, on your appointment to the Student Health Advisory Committee.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Perfect. We will now be moving on to officer reports. I'll be quick. Everything mine is written down in my report. Tommy,
Everything will be written for me. Thank you.
Sherry,
Mostly same here. The only things that I wanted to bump was that I had a meeting with MSA and they had asked me to talk a little bit about, they have like a testimonial form about um, like access to halal food and kind of dining accommodations. And so I will put the link in the chat. It's also in my officer report if you all could spread the word basically. And then the only other thing is that SOS is in less than a month. And so if you all applied, I'll see you there. But yeah, that's it. Everything else in my officer report.
Perfect. Talia,
My report will be written.
Jaya,
My report's written, it's all there. Y'all can read it. Thanks.
Brett. Brett isn't here, I think. Um, Chris Espino.
My report will be written.
Thank you. Daniel.
Mine will be written.
Thank you, Edison.
Written as well.
Divine.
Will be written.
Joy.
Mine will be written.
Nico.
Mine will be written.
Hannah.
Mine will be written, thank you.
Hiram. Wait, yeah, Hiram.
Mine will be written.
And then Kea.
Mine will be written.
Orlando, if you have any updates.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. I do not have any updates.
Thank you. Lorelai.
Hi everyone, happy Tuesday. Just want to shout out continuing on with like looking at your appointments, and particularly looking to appoint FICOM as you know you're reviewing your budget today. Just good to get that one in as soon as possible. Beyond that, just keep an eye out for on your email regarding any recs that you might have that are still outstanding or need signatures or anything like that as we're continuing to process recs. And then lastly, Jonathan's update for tonight was regarding HR reviews of your interview and application materials for your offices. I don't have details on that as he's been tracking that, but once he returns, he should be able to provide an update via Slack or email or however you would like to be preferably contacted. So just keep an eye out on that if you're waiting, because I know a few of you have reached out. But that's all.
Thank you, Lori.
Hi guys and gals. Just I will not be at the meeting next time. I will be on vacation, so I will see you in a month. That's wild. That's it.
Thank you. We hope you have fun. Jonathan isn't here, and then Peter isn't here. There is no old business today, and so we can move on to new business. We can move on to our resolution condemning the campus-wide and global rise of anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism from Gen Rep to Jaya. Jaya, whenever you like, feel free to give a brief description. Just for the sake of time, maybe not reading the entire resolution, but we're confident whatever you might need to share.
Okay, so we don't have time to read it in
Um,
entirety, although organizations requested for me to read it.
if you'd like to read the entire resolution,
Well, it's just, I mean, I want to support the people who like helped draft this. They
yeah,
asked me to read it.
yeah, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to speed well, you know what? No, I'm not going to try to speed through this because this is important. And because of the responses I have gotten from not just like people and not just council members in general, just like the broader group of people. I think some of the things that have been said have been very harmful. So I will be taking the whole time to read this. I feel comfortable doing that because the students that have elected me, the people that endorse me, asked me to do that. So I'm gonna follow through with that. So you guys can just sit and listen.
and hear my very scratchy voice because I've lost my voice. So thank you, Julio. I'm gonna start. Whereas there has been a profound increase in anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism campus-wide and globally, especially since October 7th, 2023, reaching unprecedented levels. And whereas the surge in anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism has translated into deadly or near fatal violence, including but not limited to one, the fatal stabbing of 6-year-old Fadia Fayyad, sorry, I'm gonna butcher these names, and the wounding of his mother, Hanan Shaheen, by the landlord Joseph Silva in Plainfield, Illinois on October 14th, 2023. The November 3rd, 2023 hit and run hate crime at Stanford University, where a driver shouted anti-Muslim slurs before deliberately striking Abdul Wahab Amira, an Arab Muslim student who was wearing keffiyeh, leaving him hospitalized. And three, November 25th, 2023, shooting of a Palestinian American student, Shama Laternis, Kanan Abdul Ahmad, and Hussein Ali Ahmad, two of whom were wearing traditional Palestinian keffiyehs while on fall break in Burlington, Vermont. And for the February 3rd, 2024, stabbing a 23-year-old Palestinian American, Zakaria Dar, in Austin, Texas, an attack police have classified as a hate crime after the assailant, Burt James Baker, shouted racial slurs and stabbed him just 3 inches from the heart while he was returning from a pro-Palestinian protest, whereas the Council on American Islamic Relations received 8,658 anti-Muslim and anti-Arab bias complaints in 2024 alone, a 7.4% jump from 2023 and the highest annual total that this nation has recorded in its 30-year history. PAR's 2025 Unconstitutional Crackdowns report concludes that the latest wave of anti-Muslim hate is not random, but driven by a toxic combination of Islamophobic stereotypes and efforts to silence opposing viewpoints. Additionally, it confirms that Muslims, along with Palestinians, Arabs, Jews, African Americans, Asian Americans, and others were targeted due to their anti-genocide and anti-apartheid viewpoints. A pattern that, according to RLA Executive Director Hisham Ayush, threatens not only the civil rights of Muslims, but also the very foundation of free expression in their country. And whereas harmful stereotypes that brand Arabs and Muslims as terrorists inflict real world harm, with profound consequences stemming from a long troubled history that is once again surfacing across the US. Whereas President Donald J. Trump and other elected officials have weaponized the word Palestinian as a derogatory slur. Most notably, Trump declared that Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer had become a Palestinian while speaking to reporters on March 12th, 2025, and as recent as today, July 8th, 2025. As well, when he labeled former President Joe Biden a very bad Palestinian during the June 27, 2024 presidential debate, thereby reinforcing anti-Palestinian racism and normalizing its use in mainstream political discourse. Whereas USAC believes the same way that bigotry is now being weaponized in US electoral politics, exemplified by, but not limited to, the recent justice smear campaigns aimed at Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic nominee in the 2025 New York City mayoral race, including doxing, repeated death threats, and overt Islamophobic slurs from prominent MAGA influencers, including House of Reps Andy Aldous from Tennessee, calling him Little Muhammad while urging his denaturalization and deportation, sending fundraising emails labeling him a Hamas terrorist sympathizer, which USAC feels is a soul because he is a Muslim immigrant. And Rep Green recent social media post superimposing a burqa on the Statue of Liberty, an image rooted in anti-Muslim racism and designed to stoke baseless fear of Muslims. Whereas college and university campuses across the US are epicenters of anti-Palestinian racism, a pattern that seeks to silence, erase, dehumanize, and defame Palestinians or allies who publicly advocate for Palestinian human rights, and is manifest in practice such as 1, denying the Nakba or justifying violence against Palestinians, 2, refusing to recognize Palestinians as an indigenous people with a collective identity, belonging, and rights, 3, excluding Palestinian perspectives, and 4, defaming Palestinians and their allies as anti-Semitic terrorist sympathizers, un-American, or opponents of democratic values to silence and legitimize their speech. Whereas UCLA has likewise seen a sharp rise in anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim hate incidents, harassment, and discrimination, especially since October 7th, 2023, including 1, violent intimidation, assaults and slurs against students, faculty, and staff displaying Palestinian flags or keffiyehs, including being pepper sprayed, spat on, shoved, and called terrorists. Coordinating doxing campaigns and death threats targeting pro-Palestinian organizers, which some students followed home and their families harassed. And 3, harassment by staff and faculty, and yet UCLA administration failed to respond promptly or effectively to these incidents, as noted in a federal civil rights settlement with the U.S. Department of Education, whereas UCPD at UCLA has increasingly engaged in policing driven by implicit bias toward visible symbols of Palestinian identity, particularly the kafia, including one May 1st, 2025, Profits Stop and Trial E. Young Drive North, where 8 students wearing kafias were handcuffed, photographed, and detained for nearly an hour on minor seatbelt infractions and alleged routine traffic violations that violates California Field Code 27315, 40500, and 40302, required to be handled by on the scene site and released in the Supreme Court's Rodriguez v. United States 2015 ruling deems a violation of the Constitution's shield against unreasonable seizures when prolonged beyond the time reasonable necessary to issue a ticket for the violation. Into May 2nd, 2024, raid on the Palestinian Solidarity encampment, during which students wearing kafiyas were zip tied, denied water and medical care, and held for hours without charge. These events revealed a pattern of viewpoint-based profiling, implicit bias, and prolonged detention that UCLA's and the administration has failed to investigate promptly or redress effectively. Whereas on May 15, 2025, multiple posts on UCLA Reddit forum showed an individual carrying and defacing the Quran, the Holy Book of Islam, paired with anti-Muslim slurs, and an open invitations for students to gather in UCLA's Dickinson Court, takes part in the desecration. Here, LA publicly condemned the act and urged UCLA to address the alarming rise in Islamophobia on campus, yet UCLA's administration issued no statement acknowledging or condemning this incident or similar acts of anti-Muslim racism. Therefore, once again, failing to respond promptly or effectively to protect its Muslim students to the standards of peace. Whereas the USA Constitution establishes that USAC exists to fairly represent student interests, needs, and welfare within the university community, to recognize, represent, and support the diversity and needs and views of students from the preamble, and the USA bylaws direct their internal vice president to be responsible for working to ensure the safety of UCLA students. Article Section 3, Clause 15. And whereas the 2024 California Campus Climate Report, however, finds that on UCLA campus, 79% of Muslim students experienced harassment or discrimination. 83% felt targeted by peers, 54% felt targeted by professors or instructors, 78% felt unsafe on campus, 78% feared doxing or other privacy violations, and 100% of those harassed reports incidents occurring after October 7th, 2023. The most alarming is the phobia metrics among the 6 UC campus surveys. Whereas UCLA's task force on anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism, convened in charge by Executive Vice Chancellor and Provost Darnell Hunt, created in December 2023, and issuing its first public report May 13, 2024, documents a persistent pattern of harassment, physical doxing, physical violence, doxing, and academic reprisals directed at Palestinians, Arabs, Muslims, and their allies, culminating in the April 30th to May 2nd, 2024 attacks on the Palestine Solidarity encampment and the subsequent administration directed violent police raid to clear encampment by injuring, detaining, and arresting more than 200 peaceful protesters. Students, faculty, staff, and community members were shot at by police at close range with stun grenades and rubber bullets, with injuries to the head, face, legs, and chest, beaten with batons, and denied medical assistance when EMS was blocked from entering the encampment, highlighting the university's utter failure to protect its students. Yet neither UCLA's administration nor UCPD have accepted responsibility or taken meaningful accountability for these actions. Whereas the surge in anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism is reflected in UCLA's own practices. April 30th, 2025, UCP shut down a peaceful pro-Palestinian film screening of encampments within minutes and seized its protection screen under time, place, manner policy. Yet weeks later, students erected a volleyball spike ball net, also a temporary structure under UCLA policy 850.1 in Morse code, and played for hours with no citation or police response. USAC views this as a clear, unequal treatment of how CPM is enforced far more aggressively and consistently against pro-Palestinian expression. Whereas in a statement to the Jewish Telegraphic Agency following its December 20th, 2024 civil rights settlement, the University of California declared UC unequivocally rejects anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and all forms of harassment and discrimination. The U.S. Department of Education's November 7th, 2023, Dear Colleague letter affirms that anti-Semitism is a homophobia have no place in our schools. And three, the UC Office of the President has designated $7 million to support initiatives across the system addressing anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and other forms of bias, bigotry, and discrimination. However, UCLA and the UC haven't taken adequate steps to address and prevent Islamophobia, which in many places, especially recently, is a byproduct of anti-Palestinian and anti-Arab racism, whereas the aforementioned incident statistics, while alarming, represent only a fraction of what USAC finds to be profound anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism experienced at UCLA, a systemic issue that the university has failed to address and confront, as underscored by the Task Force on Anti-Palestinian, Anti-Arab, and Anti-Muslim Racism May 13, 2024 report, which notes that Muslim, Arabs, and defenders of Palestinian human rights, including many Jews, narrow our task force attempts to bring the racism and violence to their attention. Efforts that have largely been ignored. Therefore, let it be resolved that the USAC condemns all forms of anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism that have occurred, whether at UCLA or globally, including incidents of discrimination and harassment committed by UCLA students, faculty, staff, and community members, and a firm commitment to protecting Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim students it represents who have been subjected to these forms of racism and discrimination. Therefore, let it be further resolved that USAC calls upon Chancellor Julia Frank to issue no later than the start of fall quarter 2025 campus-wide statement explicitly condemning anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism. And all, if it's warrants, this statement shall one, acknowledge the document rising such a racism at UCLA and globally, two, affirm UCLA's commitment to academic freedom and equal protection for Palestinian, Arab, and Muslim students, staff, and faculty. And three, outline the three actions that administration will take to combat this form of bias and racism, including but not limited to the initiatives outlined below. Therefore, let it be resolved, USAC called upon Julia Frank, Deputy Vice Chancellor and Provost General Hunt, and all relevant campus stakeholders no later than the start of fall 2025 to elevate the status of the existing UCLA task force on anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism into a permanent standing initiative that one directly reports to the Chancellor and two has the support required to achieve its goal, including but not limited to receiving an annual operating budget and staff support on par with current standing initiatives to combat anti-Semitism. Therefore, let it be further resolved that USAC calls on the UCLA Center for the Advancement of Teaching, the Office of Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, and Campus Human Resources create a mandatory annual training for faculty, staff, and students on the history and contemporary forms of anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism within the first module to be piloted by summer session 2026 and required campus-wide by fall 2026. Therefore, let it be resolved that USAC urges UCLA's Associate Vice Chancellor of Campus and Community Safety, Steve Murray, and the CTV G1 creative people officer and standards training, certified mandatory animal training model for every officer, dispatcher, PSO, supervisor that explicitly defines injustice anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism, common stereotypes, and implicit bias examples. Uses scenario-based exercises drawn from recent campus incidents and is co-designed and periodically reviewed by the Task Force on Anti-Palestinian, Anti-Arab, and Anti-Muslim Racism impacting UCLA, registered student organization, and civil rights partners such as LA, with completion of the training required for a field deployment or promotion, and two, sends a campus-wide email that publicizes the mechanism for reporting bias, discrimination, or violence by UCPD or private security contractors, including Apex and contemporary security corporations, along with investigative processes and disciplinary consequences. Therefore, let it be further resolved that all USAC council members ensure all USAC funding bodies, including but not limited to the Budget Review Committee, the Finance Committee, the Green Initiative Fund Committee, and International Level Program funds and strongly ensured sole funding body. Campus Programs Committee adhere to the USA non-discrimination clause. Therefore, let it be finally resolved that USAC commits to ongoing advocacy beyond this resolution through one, meeting with the task force of anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism annually, to assess campus climate and review incident statistics, and two, requesting a written progress report from the Chancellor's office each quarter beginning fall quarter 2025 until every provision of this resolution is fully implemented. So that was a lot, but it had to be said. I feel like it had to be said within its entirety. As you can see, over 20 supporting orgs have signed on to this. Nine council members, including myself, that's over half of USAC, have also signed on to this. So I think you can clearly see the dire need of its support. And sorry for my butchering as I'm sick, but yeah. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Jaya, for um, your presentation on this impactful resolution. Are there any council comments, deliberations, questions for Jaya? Yes, Talia.
Thank you. First and foremost, like thank you to Jeff for taking the time to read that out so everyone could hear. And just in conversations with Muslim students on campus, it's definitely clear that anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, anti-Muslim hatred has been a concern and continues to be a concern on campus. And so far during my time in USAC, the very sponsors on this resolution have always encouraged me to steer away from vague language or vague procedures that can unintentionally suppress the lived experiences of others on campus. And taking their advice into account, I do have a small concern with the vague verbiage regarding how EDI modules are to be designed. By no means am I insinuating that like this was the intent, but the current language introduces a vagueness that might unintentionally harm students who hold legitimate, diverse political, religious, or cultural views. Right now, there's currently no language to ensure that the inclusion of one historical perspective wouldn't render another group's historical, cultural, and religious experience invalid. Like there's no curriculum. There's no specificity regarding how the curriculum would uphold viewpoint neutrality. And I think it is really hard to find this balance, but committing to finding this balance and being conscious of these factors is the bare minimum. I do have one amendment suggestion. I can put in the chat or screen share. I don't know what would help. It's like a mini blurb. I could put in the
Yeah.
chat. That's
Can you put it in the
easiest.
chat, please?
Sure. Okay. And this is specifically addressing the section in the let it be resolved clauses about the creation of the training materials. And let me read it out. Therefore, let it be resolved that the USAC affirms any campus-wide anti-discrimination training must be applied equitably and designed to promote inclusivity without imposing a single historical or political viewpoint. It must protect students from exclusion or bias based on their identity or political beliefs, avoid content that stigmatizes or delegitimizes the religious or cultural identities of any campus community, and ensure that diverse perspectives are respected in both academic and student life. I don't know if I can elaborate on anything.
Okay. Hold on. I'm going to try to pull up something I found.
Oh.
Yes, Tommy.
Yeah, hearing the amendment, I think kind of like I think we're kind of misinterpreting what the initial thing is. Like there's nothing like it's about anti-Palestinian, anti like Muslim racism, anti-Arab racism. I don't think the current language as it's written takes into account anything like historical or political. So I think kind of adding it in there is kind of creating like an unnecessary kind of addition, as this is strictly on the basis of racism, and kind of racist, like how to, like it's basically an anti-bias training. We already have anti-bias trainings in place already, but just ensuring that said trainings cover, I guess, said instances of racism. But I don't think necessarily this amendment is necessary, I guess. It just seems like, I don't know, I think it's conflating two things that are not meant to be conflated for the sake of this resolution.
Divine.
Yeah, hello. Thank you, Jaya, for reading this resolution. It's extremely thorough, and like I'm just super like proud and happy for this resolution. And I disagree with an amendment change. I think and I just want to follow up with what Tommy had just said, what the focus is on, that amendment isn't needed.
Yes, Kaya.
Yeah, thank you, Jaya, for this resolution. It's so well written, and um, I actually think it's so specific. Like it has like proper concrete um evidence and like concrete actions that should be taken. And I completely second what Tommy and Jaya are saying because this is not supposed to be like a resolution for holistic anti-discrimination. It is for anti-Arab and anti-Palestinian and anti-Muslim racism. So I just feel like it doesn't make sense to like it's just not required.
Hi.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, go.
Um, Yeah, no worries. First, I would like to say that it's honestly been such an honor to have gotten to work with MSA and with Jaya on this process and to see how the resolution has developed. And honestly, like I feel like Tommy, Kea, Divine, like you all put it best. But this being more specific, this resolution is what I mean, being more specific to anti-Arab, anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian discrimination. It doesn't take away from other communities by specifically focusing on these communities. And I feel like the change that was requested for the resolution, although I do see where it could stem from, it would dilute the main message that we're trying to get across with the resolution.
Yes, Talia.
Thank you for like everyone's feedback. I will say in response to Tommy's first thing about there being no reference to like something historical in the EDI modules, it's specifically stated that the modules would educate on anti-Palestinian like history. And so that's why I was a little bit confused when you said that. And as far as it conflating two issues, I think that's the point of the inclusion of the amendment is that you are eliminating any point for there to be a misinterpretation of the intention and the overall sentiment about anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, anti-Muslim discrimination. That should be the central focus of the resolution. I don't disagree with that in any capacity at all, but I do feel that when you are introducing a procedural change, that's when the specificity and tying up those loose ends and tying up those areas where misinterpretation can happen is important. And I don't think that one amendment it's not the intention to dilute the sentiment of the rest of the resolution. And again, it is, after all, a recommendation that the council will vote on. But yeah, just to clarify.
Thank you, Kaya.
I just have a question as to your comment. What can you be more specific as to what you mean by misinterpretation, or which parts do you think and how they could be misinterpreted?
Sure. Wait, Diego, should I go after Tommy and Sherry, or should
Yeah,
I?
you can go right now.
Okay. I want to reemphasize that this is like this amendment is not an attack on the entire resolution. By no means is that what's happening. And from the beginning, I have emphasized that it's on one specific part. And thank you, Kea. I will definitely emphasize where that is. It's in the let it be resolved clauses, and then let me pull up what the starting phrase is. If it's almost, it should be, at least on my end, it's on the last page. And it's the let it further be resolved clauses about teaching advancements in teaching, Office of Equity, Diversity and Inclusion in campus, those two specific parts. And as far as like what the misunderstanding is that it's not that like the misinterpretation I'm saying is a misinterpretation of intention. And misinterpretation of intention is not like saying that that was the intention. And I don't believe that it was, but as was instructed to me when I was creating the interfaith resolution, being really specific about, like, let's say you're creating a curriculum to advance to educate others on the history of a certain group or a certain people. I think there needs to be a more, like, I think in a complete like creation of something new rather than like an expression of sentiment or condemnation of bias against certain groups. There has to be a more holistic approach, and you're acknowledging that some groups, that the vagueness and not specifying like, well, by doing this we're not trying to exclude this group and this group and this group. I think that's just alleviating, taking like, I think, an extra unnecessary step to alleviate any misunderstanding about the intention, and making sure that in the creation of these new modules the factors that I listed aren't compromised. It's almost like creating a set of procedures in the creation of these modules. That's the vagueness that I was kind of concerned with, that there's no kind of guidelines as to like, well, how are we going to make sure that the education can resonate with everyone, or not even resonate, because everyone has different experiences, and they might not resonate with everything. But okay, sorry, that was kind of a mouthful, but I can like further clarify maybe.
Jaya, do you have any remarks to make? Or do any other council members have anything else to say?
I don't have anything to say, and my council members said it best. So I'm not gonna waste time.
Thank you. Sherry, I saw your hand up. If not, we can move on.
I just like wanted to reemphasize, like, I think that the point of this resolution is that initiatives that there has been very little institutional support to combat anti-Muslim Islamophobia, and that kind of rhetoric. And so I think that this resolution, that's what it's focused on. And I think that an amendment like this is unnecessary in a resolution that should be focused on supporting Muslim students on campus. And if once we pass this resolution, there will absolutely be more discussion about facilitating, making sure that the creation of these like trainings and programs include student voices. But I don't think now is the time that we should be like taking away from the centering of Muslim students and the discrimination that they've encountered.
Okay, I think these will be the two final remarks. Hiram and then Talia.
Yeah, so I just wanted to note that I think we just need to remember what the issue is at hand. I don't understand what the point was on bringing up the interfaith resolution, simply because that one and this resolution are calling for two completely different things. And I don't necessarily see the vagueness and how that kind of amendment to the resolution would change anything. And I mean, like Sherry said, there will be support after the passage of the resolution. So I'm not necessarily too worried about, the next action items afterwards, especially since it was also done in collaboration with the Muslim Student Association. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Talia.
Okay. just briefly, kind of closing remark, to respond to what Sherry said. I really appreciate that you are verbalizing that those specific procedures will be outlined after the fact, but there's no guarantee that that's going to happen. And so I really do hope that actions speak louder than words, and that is seen through. And on the note of the interfaith resolution, all I will say in regards to that is in the process of creating that resolution, I again was told by a few council members and guided by them that focusing on anti-discrimination isn't necessary because it is already included in the bylaws. So seeing this resolution and seeing the energy and love that was put into it gives me a lot of optimism. And I'm very hopeful that council members will be dedicated to condemning discrimination against the 4 other religious groups that were working on the Interfaith Council with me, Interfaith Resolution with me. But thank you guys for giving your guys' feedback on the amendment. And thank you again to Jaya for taking the time to work with the communities and bring this forward. Yeah.
Jaya, and then we'll move on to a vote.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, Talia, everyone, for your specific remarks. I appreciate everyone being honest and vulnerable in this space. But one last thing I did have to say in regards to the comment about like bringing up things in the past, things like that. I want to again center it back to the now and what this resolution specifically focusing on. Yeah, we in the Undergraduate Student Association, yeah, we do have the non-discrimination clause. That is true. However, the UCLA, despite their content neutrality, what this USAC resolution presents is the fact that that content neutral point of view is not being prioritized and is clearly not supporting our Muslim, Palestinian, and Arab groups on campus and leading to this spike in racism. And that's what all these specific citations in this resolution shows. So this is specifies and has relevant research and statistics. So I just wanted to highlight that and end that on my closing remarks and go back to what the students and also remember what the students said at the beginning during public comment period. The students were actually facing this. Thanks.
Yeah, Jessica.
Yes, I just had one quick friendly amendment as well. In your second to last therefore clause where you're referring to funding bodies, I would recommend also putting at the end of that clause adhering to the PACAO's viewpoint neutral funding, since that is a OP policy that any funding body needs to allocate funds on a viewpoint neutral basis. So if you want the specific one, it's 86.30. And I can type that into the chat for y'all.
Thank you. Jessica, I believe you sent an email to council members about it, right?
Yes, I sent an email as well regarding the bylaw change, but I know that was struck from the agenda. So same thing would apply there. And if you all want to meet offline so we could chat more and come up with, alternative language, I'm happy to meet with you all.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. Now we will be moving on to a vote. If we could get a motion and then a second, please.
I motion to, is it approve or pass?
Approve.
Okay, I motion to approve the resolution condemning the campus-wide and global rise of anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim racism.
I second.
Who seconded? Tommy?
Yes.
Here are motions. Tommy seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. All abstaining, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. with a vote to 10 to 0 to 2. This resolution is passed. Congratulations to JF for passing our first. No, it's not our first resolution. Sorry. Sorry, I got caught up because last year our first one was in the summer. But yes, that resolution is passed. Thank you so much, Jaya. I think now we will be moving on to our budget, right? No, sorry. Put that up. Yes, our budget. So I believe
Okay.
Jessica, yes, thank you.
Yes, let me promote Beverly, or if someone doesn't mind promoting Beverly so that she can screen share. So I'm gonna have her screen share for me and do any edits that you all have. This way I can just talk through the budget and not have to worry about capturing any amendments. So as soon as she joins as a panelist, she can go ahead and screen share. And hopefully you all got the link if you need to follow along too with the Google Sheet. I know we sent it out a little bit late, but converting it from Excel to Google Sheets is a little bit tricky just because some of the formulas that we have. So, so yeah, you should have all received the link by email as well. But Beverly, if you don't mind starting on the last tab in the sheet, just so we can start from like the data. Yes, that's perfect. And so this is gonna kind of be a lot of information. So please, if anybody needs me to like further clarify, or if you have questions that come up while I'm talking, definitely, raise your hand or type in the chat so we can address it. We can also go back to anything. But I just want to give you some context for how we build your budget. So we get a couple pieces of information from the university. The first is this projected enrollment. So we look at how many students we anticipate to be enrolled for the 25-26 fiscal year or academic year. And then we basically do a calculation to see how many students we would expect for summer enrollment, because you do have some fees that collect over summer. And then this will tie in with the campus-based fee rates that I'll get to in a minute, but you can just go to the next one, Beverly, for the utility. So this tab is the utilities for ASUCLA. So it's a shared cost between all entities. And it is essentially, keeping the lights on, the electricity, all of those things. USAC doesn't directly pay for any charges. It's just a comprehensive, like, yearly charge to each entity for your cost share of all of your spaces in Kirkhoff. And then the next tab you can go to, Beverly, the campus-based fees. So this is the other sheet that we received from the university, and this essentially lists every single student fee that is collected. So this is kind of what you all see on your Bruin bill as the different fees that are called out. So it also includes information about what portion of the fee is going back to financial aid per return to aid, which some of your fees do have included. And then you'll also see some of the older fees. So like, for example, the undergraduate student association fee is essentially like a combination of multiple fees. And not all of your older historical fees are adjusted for inflation or have the return to aid component as well. So we can go ahead and go to the next tab. So this is maintenance cost set for the year. And this additionally is another cost share for all entities in ASUCLA. And this essentially allows us to put in maintenance and facility work orders and tickets for all of your office spaces. And we don't get charged for those because we just pay annually for all of the spaces in Kirkhoff. So both this and the utility bill is based on square footage. So all of your office spaces that are also allocated to student orgs as part of OSAC are also included in these costs. You can go to fee data. So this is the sheet that is the most explanatory of the breakdown of your actual student fees. So like I said, we get the fee chart from the university, and that kind of consolidates a lot of fees together. This breaks them back out and tells you where exactly each piece of the fee is going. So the first one, membership fee, that's your general fee that pay the cost of your operations as USAC, but is one of the oldest fees, not adjusted to inflation. So the CPI indexed column tells you whether or not it's an inflation adjusted, and if it is it a 3-year or annual inflation adjustment? And then we also include in column H, any of them that are return to aid. So if it says 0%, that means that that is a fee that when it was passed initially, the return to aid provision was not a policy. So it was passed without that included. Any new fee automatically includes a 25% return to aid, but it did not retroactively adjust any old fees. Additionally, we have it broken down by quarter, so you'll see fall, winter, spring, and then the summer column. If it says DNC, that means do not collect. So again, a lot of your older historic fees do not get assessed to students during the summer. So there's no fee collection during the summer. And then other fees, for example, pledge, does get assessed during the summer to any students enrolled in the summer session. So those are kind of some key points of the sheet of just understanding what the information is. And then we also kind of have them boxed by the referendum name. So for example, Pulse, you'll see a red box around Pulse and then PU dash and then some acronym. So that essentially means that from the Pulse referendum, it gets split, that many ways to different academic departments, university units, or some fees also stay internally for USAC. Okay, so we can go to the next tab. So this is our administrative and support services summary. So for all of your support staff, including student government services, student government accounting, all of our student staff, your minute taker, your webmaster, all of those positions are supported directly by USA. Some of the career and student positions that function for both governments is a shared cost with GSA. So that's where you'll see the USA PR and the GSA PR column is basically indicating what portion of that cost is shared with the Graduate Students Association and billed directly to them. And then TGIF is a fee that, per the referendum language, includes covering the cost of a professional staff grant coordinator. So that's what that portion is. And then the contracts position, when we initially got it approved by USAC many years ago, that is a cost share of essentially commissions and offices that heavily contract. So CEC, CAC, Community Service Commission for a lot of the insurance needs, SWC for dance marathon, those types of things. So that's where you see that cost breakdown there as well. And then the other office expenses, so these are some hard costs for USAC. So supplies includes, primarily supplies for SGA, but includes things like stamps to mail out, checks, anything with check processing, general office supplies. MIP, like I mentioned before, is our financial software that we use, the accounting software we use to track your budget and to do entries and allocations and things like that. So that's a hard cost to pay for that subscription. Cognitoforms is another hard cost subscription for the rec form that's online. So that's the platform we currently use. The audit costs, so that is for your annual audit that you do with KPMG. So that is also a hard cost. And then UC Path, so something we changed this year with only having elected officers in FICOM chair be stipended via UC Path was to alleviate some of the costs that are associated with essentially issuing everybody W-2s. So that is the hard cost for the 15 elected officers plus FICOM, so there's 16 total. And everybody else who's either a stipended appointment or office staff or things like that, we're going to process via honorarium checks quarterly. So that is an adjustment that's new this year. Conferences and travel, that includes a budget for attending. There's an annual MIP conference for our SGA staff, and then there's also some other professional associations that we're part of that help with professional development of your advising team. So we do have some budgeted there, but in the event that conferences or travel is limited by the university next fiscal year as well, we'll utilize that for just training costs to do like virtual trainings and things like that. So that's the total other office expenses and kind of a breakdown of your administrative and support services. The governing bodies tab is basically all of your stipends. So you have your 15 elected at the top. The hourly rate is adjusted annually for whatever the LA City minimum wage is. So this year it went up to $17.87. So you'll see that your stipend rates are based on that rate for a 20-hour work week. And then during the summer, it's a slightly reduced rate since you're not meeting weekly. It's adjusted for that. And then every other position that you appoint is some adjusted amount from that. So you can scroll down a little bit, Beverly. We have J board, your finance committee stipends, budget review, CS mini fund, election board. And then some of these committees also have a nominal supply budget, and that's just for different operational costs, as well as e-board. So like was mentioned in the presentation, they have a hard cost of their My UCLA ballot. So we are going to create a new account for that this year. So it's very clear, and they do not spend that money on something that's not My UCLA. But these other line items are adjustable. So this is a decision point for you all if you want to make some adjustments to where they have things budgeted. I know they said they wanted more for advertising. We can make changes here if you all choose. So which we can come back to after I get through the full sheet. Then we can talk about making any updates. And then OSAC, we did put in a small budget for OSAC to accommodate this year will be an allocation year. So there will likely be some costs for facilitating that allocation process. So we went ahead and budgeted there. And then we left your retreat, orientation and installation ceremony at zero. Those budgets were cut last year. And since we didn't really need them throughout the year, we just left them at zero. Okay, can we go to the fee summary? So the fee summary tab is basically just showing you for the rate that each fee is at currently, multiplied by the number of students in the projected enrollment, how much money we expect to collect each quarter. So you'll see fall, winter, spring, and then summer if applicable. It gives you a total fee amount that would be annually. And then the 4.5% and 6.5% columns in K and L, those are essentially an administrative fee that we include in order to cover operational costs of USAC and also to balance the budget. So the 4.5% gets assessed to any delegated fees. So these would be fees that go to campus units or departments. So basically SGA receives the money from student accounting. We process it, account for it, and then we issue a check to that department quarterly. And then the 6.5% is for any internal fees. So any fees that stay within USAC that go to funding bodies or offices for operational costs and things like that. That is slightly higher just due to the higher volume of processing that is required by SGA. And included additionally in that volume of processing is also that all of your fees that come to SGA are also accounted for and included in our annual audit. So there's a very heavy lift of all of the things that go into SGA managing your books. So that's why those two fees are there. Your net expenditure funding gives you then the remaining amount that will be in your budget after we assess that fee and we reduce the funding by that fee amount. So that's kind of full detail there. And again, it's broken down by program. And so essentially each of these pieces, especially if they go to different departments, those are individual checks that we issue. We can go to expenditures. So this is a full scope with officer stipends, administrative and support services, all of your different committees and funding bodies, your maintenance, utilities. So this is your total, essentially what we would consider overhead to operate as a council. So last year, I know that council increased significantly their discretionary fund. This year we reduced it a little bit and put it at 20,000, which is more. Usually we would always budget 10,000 annually. But again, this amount of money is really meant to fund council-wide initiatives or projects that you all come up with during the year. So I just wanted to make sure to reiterate that point, just so that you all can think about how much you really need for a project. And just to reiterate that it's not meant to do special allocations for different things throughout the year. So I just want to clarify that. The compulsory fee refund that you see for $164. So any student at any time can request a refund on their student fees. And if that refund is granted, then essentially SGA would have to issue that check back to student accounting to refund that student. So we budget a very small amount in the event that happens. I think it rarely, if ever, happens. So that's why that is so low, but we do need to budget something there. Maintenance and utilities, we went over that already. General notification advertising, those are like marketing or any cost to like put in a Daily Bruin ad or anything like that. Kirkhoff telephones, we no longer budget for because I don't believe any of your offices use or have telephones. So there's no cost there. The website we budget at 3,000 just in case if there's costs for your Squarespace subscription or any other costs that come up related to having to use that website. And then your meeting facility is the cost of your BVR space. So for Tuesdays when we're back in person, that's a hard cost for that facility. And then record storage digitization is essentially SGA just scanning, like bulk scanning financial records so that we can keep everything digital. And then printing, so that we budget for all of your offices to have some money to utilize the like print kiosks around the union. So right now we have it at 3,000, but that would be another amount that if you all wanted more funds for printing, or if you're like, we don't want to print at all, we can zero that out. So some of your other decision-making points that you can do today would be to adjust some of these allocations under this tab. And we can get more into specifics if there's any questions about particular items you want to adjust. So that takes us to the last and most important page, your total budget. So this gives you the full scope of what your budget is for the fiscal year. Can you scroll up a little bit, Beverly? So you'll see the left column is your original 24-25 budget. So that's last year. Revised, that should say revised 24-25. But the revised budget is basically whatever came forward in your carryover that we had for allocations toward the end of the year. So those are budget adjustments. And then in this yellow column is your budget for the 25-26 fiscal year. So this top half budgetable income is essentially how much money are we collecting from the fees. So this is all the income that's coming into SGA based on the different referendum. And then if you scroll down a little bit, so this other income section, these are all allocated from carryover. So that's why there's 0 now. When we get to the point where we've closed and we've concluded the audit, then we'll bring you carryover, and then that amount will be added in that section. So that's your total budgetable income. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, Beverly, budgetable expense is how much money you have to spend for the year. So it's broken down by office. So you can see campus events, community service commission, CAC, AAC, facilities, all of the 9 offices that do not receive direct referendum funds. We did increase the allocated budget this year to 1,000. Last year, everybody was allocated $500 as a base budget, but we bumped it up to 1,000 because we have the means to do so. And that helps you all start the year with some budget to be able to program, or, if you want to pay someone an honorarium for being a volunteer in your office. That's what you can use those funds for. And then can you keep scrolling down? Most of this is, again, a lot of your delegated fees. So you have some money going to your funding bodies, you have some funding going to different campus committees and departments. And then your remaining amount, which is that net budgetable funds. So basically we take all of the income and we subtract all of the expenses that we project that you'll have for the year. And then you have some amount remaining. And that amount remaining per your bylaws gets divided equally amongst the 9 offices without referendum funds. So those are all the ones that were budgeted $1,000. It's basically like president, IVP, all the gen reps, TSR, ISR, any commission or office that doesn't have a referendum explicitly giving them a piece of money, they split the remaining net budgetable funds. So this year we have 67,494, which gives you about 7,500 back to the 9 offices. And you can see it's pretty close to what we had budgeted last year. And then as we discuss some of the changes that you all want to make, the impact, if you reduce costs, means that your net budgetable funds is going to get bigger and give you more money. If you add costs to different line items, that number is going to shrink. So we can talk about some things that you want to see. Beverly can make the changes, and then we can come back to this main page. At the end of the day, after all the changes are made, the budget needs to balance to 0. So that's our goal here. And I will stop talking and let y'all ask questions, or let me know if you want to see some changes. Beverly can go ahead and go to the tab that we need to be looking at and make the changes as y'all see fit. But that is your budget for the next fiscal year. And your goal is to approve it tonight, because we also then need to get it approved by the board of directors for fiscal soundness. So we do need to get this approved this evening.
Nico?
Hi, Jessica and Beverly. Thanks for presenting. Just one quick question. I might have missed this, but on the expenditures page, Finance Committee has a budget. Is that their stipend budget, or do they have an office budget in the same manner that we do?
FICOM has stipends. I believe they also get a small supply budget. But Beverly, if you can go to governing bodies tab, we can look at it if you scroll up. So FICOM, we're going to go a little bit down. It's row 28 to row 35. That is all of FICOM. So it covers the stipend for your chair, which receives a stipend the whole year. So once you appoint them, they also get paid for summer. And then it has your vice chair and FICOM members, and then they have about $350 for supplies. So yes, all of those total to that amount.
Tommy?
Yeah, also other thing, would it be possible to get rid of the supplies line item for judicial board? Like more often than not, like that money kind of just goes to waste altogether just because there's no case being heard. Is that something that we could fund should it come about through like discretionary? That way we ensure like the money is getting used.
Yes, you could choose to allocate some funds from discretionary if J Board during the year needs the funding available. That is a possibility. Um, so you could do that. I think generally they do have some supply costs because I know throughout the year they're also prepping in the event a case did come. So they may have like printing costs or just other office supplies. So I don't know if you would want to, I wouldn't recommend going to zero. But that's definitely something you could do. And then, yeah, just bear in mind as well that because J board essentially has to be um, assembled the entire year because at any point a case could be brought. Um, they never know until something is submit, and then if they're going to review it, then at that point they're going to have additional costs for facilities like to book meeting room space. Last year we had one that they potentially wanted to be a closed hearing, so they wanted to have security, which is an additional cost. So that is something to keep in mind with J board specifically, that you all will just need to make sure that there are some funds available in your budget somewhere. So discretionary could be that place that if a case were to come up during the year, you would need to make an allocation for that.
Yeah, I think that would probably logically make more sense just to make sure that the money doesn't like not get used. I don't know what other people think about that, but
Would you like us to put it to zero for now and we can see what happens?
yeah, I think that would be best. And like you said, if a case does get brought up, if they need funding for praying or whatever, like we can allocate that funding as necessary from discretionary.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Are you able, Beverly, to actually change the number to zero too? So that it will update? Oh, perfect. Thank you. Can you do it on the Google Sheet version too, just so that if anybody else is looking at the Google Sheet, they'll also see it as well?
Okay, it's just that the Google Sheet doesn't calculate. It
Oh,
doesn't have any formula.
okay. That's fine. So yes, just bear in mind that again, because we had to hard code some of the Google Sheet just so it was readable, the formulas are not going to auto calculate. So we'll make a note, and in our budget file, that's an Excel file, we'll make sure that that is updated to zero. But just in case if you're following along, that's in the sheet. I don't want anybody to think we didn't make the change.
Tommy?
Yeah, and then just second thing, increasing the e-boards budget that they came in and presented today, for their ask. Jessica, just to confirm, because I know based on their presentation, I think they were under the assumption that like the advertising increase to that would be able to be used for like some of the other line items that we have, like graphics, supplies.
Yeah,
Are
so
would they
oh,
be
go ahead.
able to pull it all from if we just increased one of the line items, or would we have to like kind of divide it as we see fit to all three?
Yeah, so during the year, the election board chairperson is able to request a budget transfer within line items for the e-board budget. So that's fine. If you want to just put it in advertising and then they decide, oh, we need more for graphics or more for facilities, they can move it around. The only thing you can't change is the MyUCLA ballot because that's a hard cost. And like I said, we're gonna open a new account for it so that that money is clearly earmarked and won't be spent next year.
All right, then I think then increasing the graphic or the advertising one from 2,000 to 8,000 like they had requested. I don't know if anyone's opposed to that. I know we did see some really positive results in terms of turnout this year. So I think a lot of us ran on a platform of wanting to increase the visibility of USAC and kind of its presence on campus. So I think putting money into hopefully making elections more of a big deal and making students care, I think we got to put our money where our mouth is in that sense. So hopefully it'll be a good return down the road. But what do y'all, anyone second or like, I don't know.
Sure.
Wait, Jessica, just to clarify, the facilities line item, is that for what is that for?
Facilities is typically used for any cost for room reservations for all the different events that election boards holds throughout the season. So like candidate debates and endorsement hearings and other things where they would need a meeting space. That's what facilities is for. So if you want, we can reduce facilities a little bit and put more of that in advertising now to get that advertising line up higher.
Is that where also their like collaboration with the Bruin Media Group, like, because they said that that costed like a couple $1,000s as well. Is that also under facilities or like what line item would that be under?
I believe they put it under advertising.
Okay, so the advertising cost is like pretty much fully just the
Yeah, I think they said the partnership was like 5K. So as it's listed now, it's not even covering
yeah.
that.
Okay.
But honestly, probably 6,000 for facilities might be on the high end of an estimate. So we can move some of that facilities budget into advertising instead.
Yeah.
So that basically you can have 8,000 in advertising, which would, well, actually that would zero out facilities. I wouldn't take it to zero because they will have some room costs just for their different events, but maybe you want to budget like 1,000 for facilities and then put advertising to 8.
Yes, yeah. I just wanted to clarify because if the Bruin Media Group stuff is not under there, then I would say I don't think that like renting out like the Kirkhoff lawn and then the orientation room will cost $6,000. So I think we should move some of that. Um yeah. And then I had one more question, just to clarify. When elections board, when they reimburse candidates for like elections costs, what does that come out of?
I feel like it might have come out of supplies, but I wouldn't be able to confirm that without seeing like an actual report from MIP. But let me see if I can look at the budget report.
Because then I think that we also have to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, actually, I think if I remember correctly, they mentioned this in the presentation as well, but I think that they were given a carryover allocation to reimburse candidates because I do see like just over 2,500 that was allocated from carryover. Beverly, do you have MIP handy to look it up or? If not, it's fine. We can figure it out offline. And like I said, whatever election board gets budgeted for the year, if they need to then do a budget transfer within specific accounts under their budget, they can do that. So if we do candidate reimbursements through supplies or some other area, if we want to create a new account, we can do that as well. There's more flexibility, but that would be best determined once we have like a seated election board chair and can kind of go over the budget with them.
Yeah, Sherry.
Oh yeah, that's fine with me. Like if we want to do it through surplus, if that's how it's normally been done, and then just decrease facilities, increase advertising, that's fine with me.
So is everybody good if we take facilities down to 1,000 and then advertising up to 8,000? Is that general consensus? Everybody's good with that?
That sounds good with me.
Okay. Beverly, can you make a note on that as well?
I have a question. Maybe I didn't get this from our meeting earlier this week, but what would be the budget for the non-referendum offices as of right now on the budget?
So let's make these changes. Because this I think is going to increase your cost a little bit. So your remaining balance should shrink a bit, but let's do these changes and then we can let you know. But your base budget is going to be $1,000 each office. And then whatever is remaining is going to get split 9 ways.
Did I hear it right? Is it decreased to 1K and increased to 8K? Okay.
Yes.
Jessica, do you think that would be enough? Like, I don't know how much like Northwest Auditorium is and like all those other things. Like, would that be enough with the facilities?
That I'm not sure, honestly. I mean, I know like venue costs increase, and honestly, a lot of times it's like staffing and other like equipment rental that kind of drives up the cost for hosting some of those. I see that we still have the e-board folks in the participants. I don't know if they can like type in the Q&A like, you know, a rough estimate of what they spent on their room reservations. That could be helpful. But yeah, otherwise we basically would just have to look in our accounting system of like what requisitions were submit by elections board and see how much their actual costs were.
Right. Well, maybe we can just do the 1K. I know there's other funding they can still apply for.
Right.
So if that for some reason is not enough, then there's other avenues we can take to kind of ameliorate that deficit. But all right.
So Beverly, are you able to see on the main budget page, you probably have to do it on the Excel file. If you make those adjustments, what is the impact to the bottom line budget?
So it went down to 7,422. Hello?
Okay, so not that much of a difference.
Yeah.
So basically, we're the 9 offices. You're getting the $1,000 base budget plus an additional 7,422. So basically, you're getting almost a $8,500 budget for the fiscal year.
Thank you. That sounds great.
Yep. Any other questions, changes, anything that you all want to go over?
Oh, and then I think possibly going over the judicial board budget. I know um we expressed like kind of the stipends, but if possible, can you share to council um like the changes in the stipends in the budget?
Yes, so we went ahead and adjusted for the judicial board stipends. It's 600 for the year for the associate justices and the associate chief justice, which I think is like the vice chair, so to speak. And then the chief justice is 750 for the year. So we just split that between the 2 quarters. The way we do the split of weeks is more or less by academic quarter. So it's like fall through spring, and then summer is that August, June, July column. So essentially, yeah, they're just paid for the academic year. So whether that be, and again, J board, all of your funding body chairs, except for FICOM, and then anybody else serving as an appointment on a funding body that gets a stipend is going to get an honorarium check that will be facilitated quarterly. So, most likely for J board, we'll just do 2 quarterly payments for the fiscal year to split it up evenly.
Yeah, and then if anyone's confused on the logic for that, it's basically just kind of under the assumption that we looked at trends over the past couple of years of how many cases have actually been heard, and then we were kind of looking at the numbers and it kind of just didn't really make sense. So even with the 600 allotment, that's approximately 30 hours of 20 bucks an hour. So it should be well within enough, kind of within that range to address whatever needs we do have come up this year, if there even is a case that's heard at all. But yeah.
Anyone have any comments? Jessica? I don't know.
No, I don't, nothing. I mean, yeah, thank you all for walking through this with Beverly and I. I know it's a lot to take in, so definitely if any questions come up, don't hesitate to reach out. We'll also, once your budget is formally approved, so you all vote on it tonight, it will go to the finance committee of the board of directors and then ultimately the overall board, and they're just reviewing for fiscal soundness, which essentially just means, does your budget balance to zero? And they will sign off on it. And once it's ready, we'll have subsequent meetings with each of you, and we'll give you a spreadsheet for your particular office budget so you can do the further allocation breakdown of, what you're covering for honorarium costs or supplies or programming, events, advertising, all those different things. So there will be additional steps following this. This is like the first hurdle to get through. But the good thing is, last year we worked really hard to completely rebuild the budget from the ground up. And I think that the result is a very legible, very explanatory budget document that clearly shows how we calculate based on and projected enrollment and the student fee breakdown, which is very helpful. And then obviously having the further breakdown of each individual fee in terms of what it goes to support and fund. was really huge and something we didn't have before because, like I said, on your broom bill, it's all just bundled in one flat rate for some of your fees. But the referendum are so old that, you know, picking it out was a lot of labor, but the benefit is that now like the budgeting process is much more straightforward. Um, so a huge thank you to Beverly for being my partner on this and building this budget, and doing all the inputting of the numbers to present to you all. But that's all I got. Until next time.
Yes, thank you so much, Jessica, and thank you so much, Beverly, for this presentation. Um, if no council members have any other final comments, I think we should be good, right? Set and vote. Yes, Tommy.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna make the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, I motion to approve the USA budget for the 2025-2026 academic year for UCLA.
Second.
Tommy motions. Who seconded?
Me.
Sherry.
Yeah.
Tommy motions. Sherry seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All opposed, please raise your hands. Um, all abstaining. Jay, was that a against or a for?
It was 4, sorry.
Okay, no, you're good. And all abstaining. With the votes of 12 to 0 to 0, our budget is approved. Thank you so much, Jessica and Beverly. Um, with that being said, I think, Tommy, if you could